So I thought to start this afternoon session with questions and answers, because there were quite a few questions that were sent in. I probably won't be able to do all of them right now, but others will get answered as we go along. And first, I just had some additional thoughts about some of the questions that came up this morning. For example, Venerable Dunya's question about seeing subtle impermanence. Like I mentioned, this monk saying, you can see the atoms in a wall. And so I had some idea about that, because they say that, as far as I remember, when you have a direct realization of emptiness, okay, so this is a very high level realization, but you directly perceive emptiness in your meditation. And when you come out of that meditation, you see things differently. Things will still appear truly existing, inherently existing, but at the same time, you know that that isn't true. Yeah, that appearance is like an illusion, like a dream, rather than how things really are. So your perception of things has changed, right? As far as that's what they say, I don't know. So I thought maybe it's the same with a direct realization of subtle impermanence. If you have that in your meditation, when you come out of your meditation, you're looking at things, they probably don't look like they did before. So whether you actually can see all the atoms in a wall and moving and so on, I don't know. But I would think, you wouldn't see things as solid and fixed, concrete, permanent as they used to appear. So maybe that's a kind of way of understanding that point. Does that make sense? Yeah. We just have to get there and see for ourselves. And then about Venerable Nima's question about time, I just wanted to say more about why I answered it the way that I did, because when I hear people say things like, oh, time is just in our mind, time is just a mental construct, something like that, it almost sounds like it's just in our mind, it's just a fantasy, it's not real, we just invent it. And I'm uncomfortable if that's what people think, because my understanding is, according to Buddhism says that time is we divide phenomena into different categories: permanent phenomena, impermanent phenomena. And then within impermanent phenomena, there's 3 categories of form, consciousness, and then this other category that's sometimes called, in Tibetan, it's demenduche, which is very easy to say, but non-associated compositional factors or something like that. Venerable Children uses abstract composites. Okay, so it's everything that's impermanent, that isn't form, matter, nor consciousness, mind. Everything else goes into that box, that category. So that's where time fits in. And time in general, but also specific things like year and month. And is that right? I got it right? Okay. And so that means it does exist. It is an existent phenomena. It isn't just created by our mind. It does exist. And although, according to Madhyamika Prasangika, it doesn't exist inherently, truly, objectively from its own side, it's empty of that kind of existence. It's just mentally labeled on top of some basis. But there is a basis there. There has to be a basis on which we give those labels: time, year, month, day, and so forth. So my understanding is it is something existent and not just created by our mind like a fantasy. But on the other hand, there was actually a question that came in that I'll slot in here before I continue. The question is, does time continue after death in the same manner as we know it, as in relation to this realm? I don't know. I haven't been there yet. Well, I mean, of course, we have all died many times, but I don't remember what happened after I died last time. But maybe, and my guess is that the sense of time we have after we die could be different. Because even in this life, in our ordinary life, there are times when our sense of time can shift. Like that saying, time flies when you're having a good time. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? When you're really enjoying yourself or you're really into some work that you're doing, time just flies. Yeah. And then on the other hand, the opposite. When you're in pain, miserable, depressed, time just seems to drag. 5 minutes can seem like hours. So our sense of time can shift because of different circumstances. So that may be the case, after death, just as it is during this life. And there's also a story that maybe relates to this as well. Most of you probably heard this story. A Sangha, one of the great Indian masters of the past, and there's a long story about him meditating in a cave in order to see Maitreya Buddha, and finally he did have a vision of Maitreya Buddha, and he wanted explanation on the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras that he didn't fully understand. So Maitreya took a Sangha to the Pure Land, Tushita. Isn't it Tushita Pure Land, I think? Anyway, this Pure Lands. And then gave him these 5 texts, 5 treatises, which a Sangha brought back to this world and shared with us. And if I remember the story correctly, it said that he was there in Tushita for a morning. Is that right? Just one morning or half a morning or something like that. But when he came back down here, 50 years had gone by. Yeah? You heard that story? So that shows that between one realm and another, time can vary drastically. And so even though our sense of time can change, it can seem faster or slower, but that doesn't mean time itself has changed. And another story I heard, this is a true story, I read in the newspaper a number of years ago. A woman, I think she was in Canada, she was in a coma for something like 20 years. Did anyone else hear this story? And she came out of the coma finally after 20 years. And her husband was standing there. She looked at him and said, "Who are you?" Because her mind was still as it was 20 years before. That was what she remembered. Herself, her husband, the world was still like it was 20 years previously. So she had a lot of learning to a lot of things to catch up on. But so even though in her mind, time seemed like stopped, for 20 years, but it did continue. Her husband aged, she aged, the world changed so much. So these are just things that make me think, yeah, time does exist. We can't say it's just created by our mind and doesn't really exist. I think it does exist, but not inherently, not truly. But our subjective experiences of time can vary due to various causes and conditions. So you might have other questions coming up related to that, but you can ask those later because I have lots of other questions here. Okay, another question that came in was, this was in response to this morning's talk, don't we bring the Dharma into our awareness all day? So on the cushion, we set our motivation, and then during the day, we do field work of integration of ethics, focus, joy, and so forth. So yes, and I'm glad this question came up because I was also thinking that when I spoke about the third point in those 3 points about, we might die even if we don't have a chance to practice Dharma, something like that. Life, can pass. So it can sound like Dharma practice is something very exclusive. It's only what you do on the cushion or what you do in a retreat, but not at other times. And that's not true. Okay, that I didn't mean to imply that, and also the teachings don't mean to imply that. So definitely, as this person mentions, that we can bring Dharma into everything that we do during the day. So anytime, anywhere, whatever we're doing, it's possible to bring Dharma into our activities, our experiences. So even if you're working in an office or in a factory, you're taking care of kids, whatever you're doing, gardening, farming. So there's things we can do during those activities that integrate our Dharma practice. For example, ethical conduct. That's like one of the most basic practices, just keeping precepts, if you've taken like the 5 precepts or whatever precepts you've taken, or even if you haven't taken precepts, ethical conduct basically means non-harmfulness. So just try to be aware that there are other sentient beings around you, you're working with, interacting with, that they don't want to suffer, they want to be happy, and just try not to do anything harmful that would cause them suffering. And also try to not do anything harmful to yourself. Because when we do something unethical, it's also bringing harm to ourselves. So ethical conduct, that's something we can be practicing 24 hours a day. And also loving kindness and compassion, just being kind to the beings around you. Generosity, there's always opportunities to practice that. And mindfulness, just paying attention to what's happening in your mind, being on the lookout for anger, greed, other kinds of disturbing emotions, and trying not to let your mind get carried away by those, but apply antidotes. So there's many things you can do during your day. And but on the other hand, if you don't have the time to sit on the cushion, if you don't have the time to go to retreats, study, listen to teachings, and so on, if your time to do those kind of things is limited, then it makes it harder to bring Dharma into your other activities. Your mind might just follow old tendencies, old habits, lose your mindfulness, lose your compassion, lose your temper, and so on and so forth. So we do need both. We do need time on the cushion, time in the retreats, time to, listen, think, meditate, to be able to practice Dharma in other activities. That's good to do both. Another question was, where is the clear mind of someone who has Alzheimer's? My father was not really himself during the months up to his death. Was his mind still with him? How do we see it? So according to Buddhism, every person, every being, every sentient being has a mind. And our mind is always there, always present. And the nature of our mind is said to be clear and knowing. Clear can have different meanings. One meaning of clear is that it's not physical, it's not material, it's non-physical, non-material. And it's sometimes compared to the sky or space, which is kind of open and vast and non-obstructed, non-physical. Another meaning of clear is just having the ability to reflect objects and know objects. And that's actually the other part of the definition of mind, is knowing. Just knowing or experiencing or being aware of objects. So that's always there in every living being. Even when someone is in a coma, okay? They might be in a coma, like that woman for 20 years. But even in a coma or in deep sleep, mind is still there. It never shuts off, never stops. And as long as the mind is there, the clear and knowing nature of the mind is there. So those qualities of the mind are always there. But of course, sometimes other factors can interfere or intervene, and the mind can get cloudy, just like the sky can get cloudy and totally covered with clouds. I don't really understand Alzheimer's, what happens with Alzheimer's. It really has to do with the brain, doesn't it? But the brain and the mind are interconnected. So something's happening to the brain, it will also happen to the mind. So yeah, during that condition, when a person has that condition, their mind isn't functioning as it did previously, with a lot of clarity and awareness and ability to focus and remember things and so on. So it becomes much more confused and forgetful and so on. But the mind is still there. That person still has a mind, and the qualities of that person's mind are still there, but it's just not able to function perfectly, fully as it could. And one thing that can be helpful too is to think that, so he already passed away. So when this man passed away, his mind, according to Buddhism, his mind left that body with that damaged brain and went to a new body. And if he was born in another human body, hopefully a healthy body with a healthy brain, then that mind would be able to fully open up as before, and be able to function with clarity and in brightness and intelligence and all the, abilities that the mind has. So during that period of having Alzheimer's, the abilities of the mind were restricted by the physical problems of his body, his brain. But that's just a temporary condition. It's only temporary, not permanent. Well, maybe for that life. It went up to the end of his death. But in a longer term, from one life to another, the damage experienced during that life will not go with him to the next life. Right? So in the next life, it'll start all over again as a brand new, bubbling baby mind, full of curiosity and so on and so forth. So that might be helpful to think about. Okay, another question. How to handle regret feelings that pop up during dying? So, in a way, it is good to feel regret if we have done something we should regret. We feel regret for, like if we've done something harmful or something unwise, unskillful, something negative. It is good to recognize that and feel regret for it. And in Buddhism, in Buddhist practice, one of the practices that we do is, in fact, we try to do this every day, what we call purification with the 4 opponent powers. And so this is a practice we can do to purify any mistakes that we make, like, karmic actions that we do, unwise, unskillful karma. And we can purify that karma so that it doesn't bring the bad results that it would otherwise. And there are 4 steps to this practice, one of which is regret, where we bring to mind things that we've done that we recognize were not good things to do. We feel it's not the same as guilt, where people tend to beat themselves up and feel bad and horrible for things that they've done, but it's just an intelligent recognition. Oh, I did that, and I know that wasn't a good thing to do. I harmed others. I broke my vow. I went against my Buddha nature. So you have kind of valid reasons for why you regret that action. And then you do the other powers. I won't go into an explanation of this right now, but basically it's reliance, taking refuge, and renewing your wish to benefit others, bodhicitta. And then remedy, doing something positive or constructive, virtuous, to sort of counteract the negative action that you did. And then making a resolution to not repeat that action again. So everyone in this room is very familiar with this practice, and probably many people online as well, but I'll explain it more later for those who are new to it. But anyway, regret is part of a practice for purifying mistakes, non-virtuous actions that we've done. And it's good to start doing that now while we're alive. And like I say, it's good to do it every day for the things that we do during the day. But we can also, and this happens kind of naturally when we start meditating, especially when you're in a retreat, lots of things will come up in the mind, memories from the past, even way back to childhood. You remember things that you did as a little kid and you thought, I'm sorry I did that. That wasn't a nice thing to do. So it's actually good to do that and then do this practice of purification. Make the determination, I'm really going to make sure I don't do that again. So if you make a practice of this during your life, train yourself in this practice during your life, then even if there's still some regrets that you haven't purified that start popping up in the death process, then you'll be able to apply this practice. You'll know what to do about regret. And also, if there's the opportunity, if it's something you did to another person that was harmful to them, and if it's possible to apologize, if that, you still have the chance to do that, then that's good to do as well. Venerable Nima mentioned the other day in her BBC about writing letters to people that she feels she harmed in her life. So that's always a good thing to do, to clear it up with those people that we may have harmed. So I hope that's a helpful answer to that. Okay, and then last night there was this question that came up about medication, giving medication to somebody who's dying. Somebody wrote in saying, I have a comment regarding this question. I asked this direct question to Geshe Kelsang Damdol, who is assistant director of the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics in Dharamsala until 2 years ago. And he told me that it's not a problem. He gave a very clear and direct answer. So that's one Lama's reply to that. It's okay to take medications. And then I mentioned this other, it was an interview with various Lamas. That same question was asked. So they had varying answers. That's always the case. You ask the same question to different Lamas, you'll get different answers. Then you can take your pick, which one you like best. Okay, so one of the Lamas, so the question was, for people with severe pain, is it wise to give injections or medication to reduce the pain that may have the side effect of lowering the level of consciousness or clouding the mind? So that was the question. So one Lama, Genlam Rinpa, I don't know if you've heard of him. He actually came to Washington, I don't know how many years ago, and there was a 1-year retreat. A group of people did a 1-year retreat at Cloud Mountain with Alan Wallace. Huh?
About 30.
30? Wow, time flies. Seemed like I didn't have a chance to do it, but I certainly heard about it. So he's the Lama that was guiding those people, and he himself had done a lot of retreat. He's passed away now. So his reply was, this is not advisable for Dharma practitioners, but for ordinary people who are not thinking about Dharma, it can be of some benefit. Even if a person has a lot of pain when he is dying, as he enters the death process, this pain will dissolve and he will be able to think more deeply. If pain-killing injections and so forth are given, then it causes a type of madness in the mind and it makes it more difficult to think clearly. So I just wonder how much he knows about the different kinds of medications that are available, and maybe he has some idea based on certain types of medications that could cause madness in the mind, but I don't think that's probably true for all. Yeah, so that's one. And then another Lama, Kamchol Rinpoche, he's probably also passed away as well. So his answer is, I personally feel that giving injections and medications and so on would not make much difference to the consciousness. For example, when a person has an operation, they are given different sedatives and seem almost dead, so that while the operation is going on, they do not feel any pain. But once the operation is finished, then they're again back to normal, and nothing has happened to their mind or anything like that. So I personally feel that it would make no difference. In fact, by relieving the pain, it would give relaxation to the person's mind. So he seems to be talking about anesthesia, but is that a different drug than something like morphine?
my experience with pain medicine, if people have a lot of pain and you give them medicine to relieve that pain, some of that pain, not all the pain, but some of it, then they get clear and they can use their mind. If you don't give it, then it's really hard to focus on anything else. So, it's about the titration of these things so that people can access their mind, in my idea of it.
But he seems to be saying that even if the person becomes completely unconscious, it doesn't seem like it has any harm to their mind.
No, of course not. Yeah.
So
everything gets washed out of the system through the liver and kidneys. So then you come back to baseline. Okay, then one last Lama, Kirti Senja Rinpoche. Amazing, wonderful Lama. And he says, there is no blanket answer here. You have to look at the individual person. If the person is in excruciating pain, then to relieve them of that pain is obviously a good thing. However, if the person has a tremendous spirit or a tremendous capacity who can bear the pain and bear up under it and keep a clarity of what is happening to them, then to give them a soporific. What's a soporific? Soporific? I don't know. That takes away that clarity. So something that would take away the clarity of their mind, then maybe that's not the right thing to do. So it completely depends on the person. So I think that's a very good answer. Don't make one statement that covers everybody, but take each case as it comes. So anyway, I hope that answers the question, that you have to look at the individual and see what would be most beneficial for them. And then he goes on to talk about how even if there is pain, there's lots of practices we can do. Remembering karma, mind training, and so forth. So if somebody has experience with those practices during their life, then they can use those practices in dealing with their pain. Okay, so that's... There are and were other questions, but I'll leave them for later. Some of them will also be answered when we get to certain topics. Anyone here have a question you want to ask? Because you didn't have much chance.
Someone asked, can you give any recommendations on working with pain at the time of death outside of medication?
I mean, like practices for working with pain. Well, yeah, there's the practice of mindfulness. And actually, I can recommend, there's a book called Mindfulness in Plain English by Bhante Gunaratana, very well-known, popular book on mindfulness meditation. And he has in there a practice for working with pain. And you can actually get that book online, the whole PDF file. If you Google it, you can find it online, or you can find it in your bookshop or Amazon or whatever. But, there's quite I won't go into all the details, but it's basically focusing on the pain and learning to relax the muscles around the pain. Because sometimes, we're physically tight around that area, and relaxing the muscles can relieve some of it. And then changing your attitude. Instead of seeing this pain as, so terrible, the mental tension, the mental tightness around the pain, and just kind of going right into it, focusing on it. And that's just a brief explanation of it. But people who try that, I've tried it myself. Sometimes, the pain will just disappear. And even if it doesn't disappear completely, your attitude about it, your way of relating to it will change. It won't seem so frightening and overwhelming and unbearable. So that's something. And if you practice that during your life, start with little pains and you can work on bigger and bigger ones. And so if you're experiencing that practice, you could use that at the time of death. And then in the Tibetan tradition, we have all these mind training practices, such as Tonglen, taking and giving. I'll talk more about that later. And also just using it to generate compassion. You can think, I'm not the only person in the world who's suffering right now. There's lots of other people who, even at this very moment, are experiencing pain or other kinds of difficulties like what I'm going through. Then you can think, oh, now I understand how they feel. I can relate to the suffering they're experiencing. Some of them might even have worse suffering than mine. So it's a kind of looking at your suffering in a different way, because we tend to get obsessed. Part of the problem is we get obsessed. Oh, my pain, this is so terrible, I can't stand it. And the more you focus on pain in that way, the bigger it can seem. Like that expression, making a mountain out of a molehill. Yeah. I mean, it may not be that bad, but the way we think about it, the way we look at it can seem really huge and overwhelming. And so taking our attention away from this pain that I'm experiencing and thinking about the pain of others, that itself gives some relief and enables you to have compassion, which is a very positive state of mind. And then having that positive state of mind is also a kind of pain reliever. It's a very beautiful state of mind. His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about this. He was once in a situation. I was there at the time. He was supposed to give the Kali Chakra initiation in Bulgaria. I don't remember what year that was. But he had this pain in his abdomen, and it was so severe, he had to cancel the Kali Chakra initiation, and they brought him to the hospital, which is several hours away. So he was in a car driving to the hospital, and he was looking out the window as they were going through the Indian villages and seeing all these very poor people, children with hardly any clothes on, playing in the dirt, and elderly people just lying there on the ground, looking like they had nobody to take care of them, and just looking at all these signs of suffering around him and thinking, feeling this great compassion for them. Even though he had all this pain in his abdomen, he kind of forgot about it or didn't notice it. It took his attention away from the pain. It became less unbearable and more bearable. So, yeah, that's another very helpful thing, using the experience to feel compassion for others, generate compassion for others. So those are some methods. Maybe also just focusing on something else, like reciting a mantra, taking refuge. Those could be helpful.
When one dies, then it seems like often, the patient some patients may be okay with dying, and but then the environment is not prepared for that. So like family or friends may be rather concerned, afraid, or have reactions that are not in concord with what the dying person is experiencing. So as a Buddhist practitioner, if I come into that situation, I'm dying, but I'm okay with that, hopefully. But my environment is not ready to accept that. Wherever I am, maybe I'm in an accident, but I know that may disturb me in my dying process. So what do you recommend to practice now to deal with that?
So you're asking, you might be okay about dying and ready to die, but there might be people around you who have a different way of dealing and reacting, and maybe they're getting emotionally overwhelmed or whatever. They have ideas about what you should do, and it's not what you wanted, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't talk about environment where you have prepared people and they now, like here at the Abbey, people now, and rather you're finding yourself in a circumstance where people don't know and react, and you can't control anything anymore, but it may interfere with your dying process, maybe.
Well, I don't know. One answer might be like we were talking this morning about having a Dharma will. No, we didn't talk about this morning, yesterday. A Dharma will. I'll talk more about this later, but the idea is to make a will in which you write down what you would like to have done as you're dying. And that can include things like what prayers you would like to be recited, who you would like to be contacted, what kind of environment you would like to have around you. And if you make that into a document and keep it with you when you're traveling, and hopefully the people who are there, if you are dying far away from here, for example, will look at that and read that and say, oh, this is what she wants to be done. And out of respect, will comply with that. So that's one safeguard against that kind of situation. And yeah, I guess it is always good to be prepared for anything, not have fixed ideas about this is how it's going to be when I die. And, it's all very wonderful and peaceful and perfect, just the way we want it. But realize that, yeah, it may not be like that. It might be somewhat chaotic, and be prepared for that. And maybe even prepare yourself, okay, if that is the case, what would I like to do with my mind? I think if we have really strong refuge, if we really practice, train ourselves in strong refuge in the three jewels, refuge in our spiritual teachers, refuge in a specific deity, Tara or Chenrezig, whoever, may really generate a strong relationship, a strong sense of connection with that particular person or that particular being, and have the confidence that they're always there. They're always there with us. So even if the situation around us might be chaotic and the way people are behaving might be undesirable, but if we can get our mind into that connection with that object of refuge and feel they're there, taking care of me, helping me, guiding me, I don't need to worry. I don't need to be afraid. It's going to be okay. Does that make sense? That's all we can do. But I think karma has an effect too. If we are really working on our karma, creating good karma, virtuous karma, and not creating negative karma as much as we can, that itself, I like to think anyway, that will probably bring results in this very lifetime, where we will find ourselves in good conditions. I guess I'm partly saying this because, I had this experience once of going to see Kirti Sencha Rinpoche, this Lama who just read his answer, and I had this. It was quite a few years ago, but I was thinking about, okay, I'm getting old and I don't have a home and I don't have insurance, and America's not a very good place, insurance-wise and so on. So I was thinking, maybe I should try to move to New Zealand or somewhere where they do have a universal health care. And so I went to see Kirti Sencha Rinpoche and told him about my concern, and I said, because I don't really have any money, and I don't want to be impoverished when I die and not have health care. And he said, oh, you don't have to worry about that. And then he said, you're a nun and you're a Dharma practitioner. You're creating all this virtue, all this good karma. So you're probably going to be healthy and not get really sick. I think that was what I was worried about, that I might get really, really sick and not have health insurance. He said, you'll probably be okay because of the virtue you're creating. That was his answer, something like that. So it sounded like he was saying, if you're living a good life and creating all this virtue, all this good karma, all this good energy, then that's going to ensure things will be okay. I can't, it's not a guarantee maybe, but I just wanted to share that answer with you. So I didn't emigrate to New Zealand, and maybe they wouldn't have wanted me anyway. So here I am back in America. Yeah, and I think like here in the monastery, we're creating very good conditions. Nobody has passed away yet, but if and when it does happen, I think this is like a really ideal situation in which to pass away, surrounded by very loving and wise and compassionate people who can help us go through that process, pray for us, help us before death, during death, after death. So, yeah, instead of worrying so much about these worst case scenarios that might happen, maybe better to just focus on creating the causes and conditions to have a better situation than that. So maybe we can stop there with the questions, and again, there are others that will be answered later. Just one last thing, because Venerable Jampa sent me an email, because last night I mentioned this Dr. Pim van Lommel, who did research on near-death experiences, and she said she's been watching a German documentary about near-death experiences, and that included an interview with this Dr. van Lommel. And he said that people could even have near-death experiences when in a coma, when in depression, or even meditation. I just wanted to share that. Even in meditation. I mean, does that mean you can be sitting there meditating and everything will stop? Heart, brain, breath, your body will go out. Or maybe it's just a simulated near-death experience, but without the physical aspects of it. Did he say? No. Yeah. There's something else I was just thinking about during the break, that we all, at least sometimes, feel this wish that we wouldn't have to die. I don't want to die. Yeah, that's a pretty common feeling. But then, have we ever considered the alternative? What if we don't die? What if we never died? And I remember reading this joke. Some comedian said, there are millions of people who long for immortality who don't know what to do on a Sunday afternoon. And that's probably even more relevant now. All the days people are spending in lockdown, probably getting really bored with net vision and board games and computer games and whatever else. And I mean, really think about it. What if we didn't die? What if we just lived forever? You really want to do that? Especially in this body? This kind of body?
Continue to decompose?
Huh?
Would the body also continue to decompose?
Yeah, I mean, if you had a 20-something body that never aged, never got older than that, was always healthy and fit. But, is that possible? And then this world. I mean, you really want to live forever in this world? Is this really such a great place? So it's good to think about that. And I wonder, these people who pay tons of money to have their bodies frozen, you know that? What do they call that?
Cryogenics.
Yeah. And the idea is someday in the future, they'll find a cure for death and they'll be able to bring you back to life and you'll be able to live forever. Isn't that the idea? But really, I mean, especially if you're already 80 or something when that happens. So you've got this 80-year-old body. You want to live with forever and ever and ever. I don't know. It's just really weird. I wonder if people really think about what they're doing. Anyway, that's an aside. So, in case any of you listening, watching, are still feeling some apprehension or doubt about the benefits of meditating on death, I thought to go through this list of benefits. This is from the Lamrim, Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. There's a list of 6 benefits of meditating on death, maintaining an awareness of death, and then also disadvantages of not doing so. Don't think about death, never think about it. So this is helpful to go through. And if you have the outline,
It's letter D, capital letter D in the outline. So the benefits of meditating on death. Number one, your actions will become very beneficial. Meaning that if we do have an awareness that we're going to die, we're not going to live forever, and we live our life with that awareness, then the things that we do, the actions that we do, will become beneficial. We'll be less likely to do things that are harmful, that are unethical, that are non-virtuous, knowing that that will just lead to feeling regret at the time of death. And also, if you believe in an afterlife, a continuation of the mind after death, then those actions will lead to suffering, bad experiences in the future. So the awareness of death will really help us to ensure that the actions we do will be good ones, beneficial ones, ones that we feel good about. And then number two, our spiritual practice will become very powerful. So it's possible to engage in spiritual practice in a kind of superficial way, like just reciting mantras or wearing the right kind of outfits, going to teachings, going to all these teachings by lamas and this and that. But, not really doing it in a deep way, in a heartfelt way. Maybe just following the crowd, your friends are doing it, other people are doing it, so you're doing it too, but not in a deep, genuine way. But if we really contemplate death and understand that we need to do spiritual practice, genuine, deep, heartfelt spiritual practice to bring about a transformation of our mind, working on decreasing our anger, our greed, our selfishness, our pride, our worldly concerns, the 8 worldly concerns, as Venerable Children's been talking about, attachment to fame and gain and praise and pleasure, and then aversion to the opposite of those. So we need to work on decreasing those kind of attitudes in our mind. And so our Dharma practice, our spiritual practice, needs to be sincere and general, genuine and not superficial. And then number 3, it's important at the beginning of your practice. So it can be a strong force getting us into Dharma practice in the first place. Often people have some kind of encounter with death, either a near-death, close encounter with death themselves, or the loss of an important person in their life. And they suddenly realize, wow, we're all going to die. What am I going to do? So it can be a catalyst for them to search out Dharma practice and start doing Dharma practice. I was thinking of a nun that I met in Australia, and she told me a story that she got into a car accident. She was driving the car, and she had a child in the back seat, so they had a car crash, and I guess she was injured and lost consciousness for a while, so, but recovered. And her son told her that, when the car crash happened, she said some 4-letter word. And she doesn't remember that herself, but when she heard that from her son, she thought, you want to die like that. Kind of like my experience I mentioned the other night about being in the earthquake, seeing my state of mind and thinking, I don't want my mind to be like that when I die. So that was for her a catalyst, an incentive to learn spiritual practice, to work on her mind so she doesn't end up dying with 4-letter words coming out of her mouth. And then number 4, it's important in the middle of your practice to keep going. So we sometimes have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy in the beginning, a lot of excitement, meeting teachers and learning Dharma and going to retreats and doing all these things, and wow, it's really wonderful. But after some time, especially after some years, that initial energy can wane, and we don't feel quite as excited about Dharma practice and maybe start, going in different directions, losing interest in practice. And this, again, could be because of not taking seriously the fact of our mortality, the fact that our life isn't going to last forever, and in fact, we don't know how much time we have. And so if we really have a strong understanding of death and the importance of spiritual practice to prepare for death, that will help us to keep going even when our energy, our enthusiasm may wane. And then number 5, it's important at the end of your practice. Well, the end of our practice is really enlightenment. That's when we can, well, I don't know if it's right to say stop our practice, because a Buddha, an enlightened being, doesn't really stop practicing. A Buddha no longer has to practice to attain enlightenment. Doesn't have to do things to attain enlightenment, because a Buddha's already there. But they don't stop doing things, because then they're just working continuously, sending out emanations to help sentient beings. But for an individual, that would be the end of our practice, when we reach enlightenment, completely free of all the obscurations, afflictive obscurations, and obscurations to omniscience. So all our work has been done in that sense. So to be able to get all the way to the end of our practice, it's important to remember death. As long as we're in samsara, as long as we still have these obscurations, karma and so on, then we still have to keep going, keep practicing. Otherwise, we keep revolving through the cycle of death and rebirth over and over and over again. Then number 6, we'll die with a peaceful, happy mind, free of regrets. So that's very important, very enticing. I'm sure this morning when we asked ourselves what state of mind we would like to have at the time of death, it's this: feeling peaceful, calm, happy, and not regretting, not full of regrets and guilt and fear of what's going to happen to me for all the things that I've done. So these are benefits of contemplating death and living our life with that awareness that we're going to die, but in a healthy way. And then there's a list of disadvantages of not meditating on death. Okay, so if we don't contemplate death and just try to push that thought aside, live our life as if we're going to live forever and never die, then there are these risks, dangers that could happen. One is that we won't remember Dharma. People who never think about death, who avoid thinking about death, try to live as if they're going to last forever, may not feel any interest, any concern to engage in spiritual practice. Not necessarily, but it's possible. But, there'll just be no awareness of the importance of the benefit of Dharma, spiritual practice, to prepare ourselves for that. And then number 2, even if you remember the Dharma, you won't practice it. So, those of us who do know about the Dharma and see the value in Dharma and maybe want to practice Dharma, but it's very easy to get so caught up in this life. So much to do in this life. So many activities to do. That Dharma practice gets kind of pushed to the side. It becomes low priority. And we spend our time doing other things and not doing Dharma. So that's something that can happen. And then number 3, even if you do practice Dharma, you will not practice it purely. So pure Dharma practice, what does that mean to have pure Dharma practice? What would you say? Free of the 8 worldly concerns. Well, that's kind of hard to do. That's a tall order. But at least try not to. Because realistically,
we're not going to be. I asked Geshe this question once: when are we free of the 8 worldly concerns? And he says, "Oh, when we realized emptiness." So yeah, up until the direct realization of emptiness, we might still have them hanging there in the mind, but we can at least learn to manage them and not let our mind be totally caught up in them, not let our practice be polluted by them. But yeah, the real meaning of practicing purely is to weed out those 8 worldly concerns. So what are some examples of practicing with the 8 worldly concerns? What would be an example of an impure Dharma practice, which is kind of polluted with one or more of the 8 worldly concerns?
One could be practicing in order to impress somebody, by going to Dharma activities in order to impress somebody.
Look at
Or
yeah.
in order to, create the merit and good karma to have some material gain.
Yeah, a friend of mine, when I was in Singapore, this one Western man who was living there, but coming to our Dharma center, he told me he was approached by another Western person who kind of made this proposal. He had this idea of making some kind of business with Dharma, like teaching Dharma and, I don't know, seminars or something. I don't remember clearly what it was. And making money, anyway, making profit based on Dharma. And then this guy was talking about, like how much money they could make and buying memberships to golf clubs and things like that. So my friend was like, he was kind of really upset, to think that people had those kind of ideas. So he wasn't even talking about creating merit in order to have good things in this life, but just using Dharma to have good things in this life. So that's a possibility. Learning Dharma and then using it to make money, teaching, making seminars or writing books, becoming a famous teacher, what are these people called? I forget the word.
Televangelists.
Kind of like motivational speakers. Motivational speakers, yeah, based on Dharma, becoming rich and famous and popular and all that. So, yeah, that would be another example of impure Dharma. Any others? Don't be shy. Things that we sometimes see in our own mind.
What comes to mind is doing things to impress your teacher, not because you really want to do it, but you think you're going to get some praise or attention.
That's similar to what Venerable Sangye said. Yeah, so it could be your teacher, it could be other people, fellow Dharma practitioners.
I would think that there's some folks who have an uncanny ability to focus on things, to get to those levels of concentration that are very pleasant and very blissful, and just kind of riding these, waves of samadhi rather than really looking at the motivation of why you want to work to that. But to be able to just do that for just for the pleasure of that experience rather than the motivation to liberate yourself.
Yeah, just pleasure here and now rather than developing your mind further towards.
And then getting maybe a little bit of some powers or some intuition, some affinities for things, and then using those to propel yourself in a worldly way.
Yeah. So these are examples that we could fall into, and we have to be careful. And even the Dalai Lama, we shouldn't feel bad, if we see these things in our mind, because I've heard even the Dalai Lama says sometimes when he's teaching, he'll have the thought coming up in his mind, I hope people like this talk. I hope, people are impressed with this. So I don't know if that's true or not, but he says these thoughts come up in his mind. So it is quite hard to have a totally pure attitude and motivation that's free of these worldly concerns. But at least if we can recognize them when they do pop up in our mind and know that's not the right attitude, I shouldn't feed that. I shouldn't give energy to that and let that continue. But really try to
make our motivation as pure as possible, as free of ego and concern for getting something in this life here and now. Yeah. So then, contemplating death helps us to do that, because these worldly things don't go with us to the next life. Fame and money and golf club memberships and whatever. Powers, they're just good for this lifetime. But then when our mind goes on to the next life, it'll be tainted with these, impure attitudes. The residue of these impure attitudes. It's not pure. So it's much better in the long run to have pure practice, even if you're not rich and famous and everybody's impressed with you. That's not important. Then, number 4, your practice will not be persistent. So even if we do practice, and maybe our practice is pure, but again, we might run out of energy. This does happen. People can be really enthusiastic about practicing for a while, but then you meet them a few years later and they're off doing something else and not meditating anymore, not practicing anymore. So this can happen as a result of not seeing the importance of Dharma practice in preparation for death and future lives. And number 5, we will create many unwise negative actions. It's not necessarily the case, but it could happen that if we don't think about death and how death could happen any time, we could become careless and do unwise things, break our precepts. Yeah, we keep the big ones, but these little ones aren't so important, so it's okay if I break them and do little non-virtuous actions. So, and then number 6, we will have many regrets at the time of death. So that kind of follows on from number 5. So if we do negative actions, thinking, I can get away with this, or not taking seriously the importance of pure Dharma practice, then at the end of our life, we may die with lots to regret, to feel bad about. So it's helpful to look at these benefits of contemplating and having an awareness of death, impermanence in death, and the disadvantages of not doing so. So it's good to contemplate those, and that can give us energy to do more contemplation of death. So I'll talk about the next 3 points of the 9-point death meditation, and then maybe tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning, we can do the meditation. So the second main point of the 9 points is the uncertainty of the time of death. And then that has 3 subpoints to it. So this is important to do because with the first set of 3 points where we're meditating on the certainty of death, that death is definite, even if we manage to get to the point where we do accept and acknowledge, yes, I'm definitely going to die, and I shouldn't, avoid it or deny it or whatever. But then another obstacle that we might have in our mind is thinking that death isn't going to happen for a long time. I know I'm going to die, but it's not going to happen soon. It feels like it's way, way, way down the line, far off on the horizon. You ever notice that in your mind? It's not going to happen anytime soon. So that's a problem because we really don't know. We don't know when it's going to happen. There's no certainty. So there's 3 reasons for that. The first is human life expectancy is uncertain. So what this means, this isn't the same as life expectancy isn't the right word. Because we are given these figures about life expectancy, like for women in the United States, it's something, and for men, it's something, and then maybe in sub-Saharan Africa, it's different than Nepal. It's, different countries will have different life expectancies. So maybe that's not the right term. Maybe it's more like lifespan. Lifespan is not certain, meaning it's not the case that every human being will have a certain number of years to live before they die. Like, maybe in some worlds, they do say in Buddhism there are these different human worlds, and sometimes they do have set lifespans, and it's like everybody lives to that age and then they die. But that isn't the case here. So it isn't the case that everybody's born with a certain number of years that they will live. It's like a guarantee you're going to live to the age of 80. In a way, that would be quite helpful, because then we could really plan our life. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and make sure that we fit Dharma practice in before we die. But we don't, that's not the case. So we don't know how long we have to live. Right? And there's no way to find out. You can't go on the internet and Google, and come up with this figure of what's the date of my death. There are people like fortune tellers, palm readers, psychics. Some people believe in those people, but I don't know. I don't have confidence in them. They might tell you you're gonna live to the age of 90, or you might die next year, but that may not be the case. So there's nobody who can tell us. Nobody who can tell us how long we have to live, what will be the date and year of our death, right? So there's no way of knowing that. And we might sometimes think that, I'm not very old. I'm only 35, so I don't have to think about death, because I'm not 35, I'm just saying. Somebody might think that way. When I was 35, I think I thought that way. It's only old people who die. Is that true? No way. My nephew, he was only 32. And I knew a nun who was only 32 when she died. And all of us know, or at least know of, people who die when they're before the age we are at now. Children, babies, teenagers, people in their 20s. There's lots of cases of people who die when they're still young. Right? So age has nothing to do with it. So we need to get that into our heads. It's got nothing to do with your age. Just because you're young doesn't mean you've got a long way to go. Right? And also health. We might think, I don't have any terminal illness. I'm healthy. Somebody, that person may have 4th stage cancer. That person has high blood pressure. They're probably going to die before me. But we don't know that. Healthy people could die before someone who's sick, someone who's terminally ill. We could have an accident, car accident, or other kinds of accidents. Or maybe there is something there happening in our body and we just don't know it. And suddenly go off. So the state of your health also has nothing to do with when death is going to happen, right? So it's helpful to bring to mind examples of people who died at different ages, to realize, age has nothing to do with it. And also people who die due to different causes. Actually, that's the next point, number 2. There are many causes of death. Okay, so illness is probably the number 1 cause of death. I think it's heart disease, at least in this country. They say heart disease, I think it's the main cause.
Right now it's COVID-19.
Oh, okay, so things have changed. That's really the number 1 cause of death.
And I think right before that, the opioid thing was taken. It lowered the whole age of average age of death.
Yeah, so it changes. But anyway, probably illness, in a general way, illness is the main cause of death. Different kinds of illness, new ones, old ones. But there's lots of other causes of death, like accidents, many different kinds of accidents. Car is probably the biggest one. But, there's also...
Gun violence, suicide.
Guns, yeah. A lot of people die due to guns. And, I also hear stories of people who are just walking along a road and get hit by a car, or riding their bicycle and get hit by a car. Yeah, so even seemingly innocent forms of transportation can become situations of death. And of course, buses and boats and planes and trains and all these other things. And another thing we might sometimes think is, if I just stay at home, I'll be okay. Right? I don't go out, then I won't be hit by a car. I don't travel in an airplane, I won't have a plane accident. I don't go out in the street and I won't be shot by somebody. Just stay at home. But people die at home as well. Sometimes there's fires, sometimes smoke or gas leakages, tornadoes, electric shock, stove blowing up. What else? What else can happen in homes?
Just falling down the stairs, slipping in the bathtub.
Falling. Yeah, well, that's what happened to this venerable that some of us knew. She apparently fell down just in her cabin retreat.
Sinkholes.
Huh?
Sinkholes.
Sinkholes? Oh.
California.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that very common?
Well, at least a few.
What, the earth opens up and the house sinks down? That's weird.
It's
Floods?
happened.
Yeah, okay. Floods, lightning. Anyway, so even in your seemingly safe and secure home sweet home, still death can happen. Also in bed. I have to tell this. One time I was teaching in Israel, I was teaching this course, and we were talking about the different causes of death and how sometimes people will avoid, for example, a lot of people don't want to fly because they're afraid there'll be a plane crash. And I said, actually, if you look at the statistics, you have a greater chance of getting killed in a car than in a plane. But you don't hear about many people who don't want to travel in a car. So this one guy put up his hand, he's actually a doctor, and he said, actually, most people die in bed, but you never hear about anybody saying, I'm not going to go to bed. I might die there. But that's the most common place where people die, is bed. Either in the hospital or your home or whatever. But yeah, some people die in their own homes, in bed. They just go to sleep and don't wake up again. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with them. They can't find any cause of that. So it's, again, helpful to think about stories of people we know or we've heard of and the different ways that death can happen. Some really weird ones sometimes, really strange things can happen that cause death. Just to get a sense that, this world isn't as safe and secure as we might sometimes think or wish for. Especially now. And then number 3 is our human body is very fragile. Oh, actually, yeah, another point kind of related to number 2 and number 3 is they say it's actually kind of ironic in that even things that are meant to prolong our life can become causes of death. For example, food, eating food. There are people who die as a result of eating food. Sometimes the food is poisoned or they choke. Yeah, I heard about this guy who was eating potato chips. They seemed pretty innocent, but a piece of potato chip went down the wrong way and he choked on it and died before he could get help. Another person I heard died of a cough drop, went down the wrong way. So be careful about those cough drops. And so even eating food, medicine, yeah, that's another one. Sometimes we take, we're allergic to the medicine, we have a bad reaction to the medicine, or we take the wrong dose, or going into the hospital to be treated for one illness and ending up getting another illness. That happened even before this pandemic, right? The people who pick up some infection or virus in the hospital. And then houses, our apartment is meant to be somewhere where we can live and be safe and cozy, but that can sometimes be a cause of death if it collapses or burns. So this is like, a tragedy of our world and our existence. And then number 3, so our body is very fragile. So we might sometimes feel full of energy and strong and almost invincible. Nothing could get me. But that's kind of an illusion. Because even something as small as a virus, which is happening a lot right now, it's so tiny, you have to look, to see it, you have to look through a very powerful microscope. So tiny. But if that gets into our body, then it can cause death. And a bullet as well, bullets can be quite small. But if that goes into our body in the right place, or the wrong place, depending on how you look at it, then that could cause death. So it doesn't take something huge, like a monster, or a tsunami, tornado, to bring about the end of our life. It can be very small, very minor. Lama Zopa Rinpoche told a story. In the early days at Kopan, there was a young man who was coming a lot to the monastery and coming to courses and so on, European guy. And he liked to go barefoot, didn't like wearing shoes. So one day he picked up a thorn in his foot. And he also didn't like doctors and medicine, so he didn't take care of it. He didn't clean it properly. And then it got infected and eventually died. So just as a result of a thorn in the foot. So it doesn't take anything huge and major and dramatic to cause our life to end. So our life is fragile. Okay, and then after contemplating these points, we'll do this meditation tomorrow. The conclusion we should try to come to is that we must, on top of needing to practice Dharma, we need to start now because we don't know how long we have to live. Because we can sometimes have the tendency to think, I really want to practice Dharma, it's really important, but postponing it. I'll do it later, thinking we have plenty of time, but we don't know. So we really should practice, at least start. Doesn't mean we'll have to shave our heads and put on robes right now, but at least to do something. Start doing some practices now. At least ethical conduct, loving kindness, and so on, getting ready for death. So we have a few minutes if there are any questions. On the floor or from online watchers.
There's 2 questions. One is, it sounds like direct realization of emptiness is a virtually impossible goal. Does this attitude reflect a cultural or preset-based reluctance to claim attainment or actual belief it is unlikely? Yeah, that one's a little
complicated there. Virtually impossible. It's not easy. It's not like a snap of a finger, but it's not impossible. And we're encouraged to just do whatever we can. Listen to teachings, read books, do courses, discuss with others, ask questions. So even starting from there, little drops, drops of teachings on emptiness. And slowly, 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 maybe not this life, probably not this life, but at least if we start learning about it and thinking about it now, we're leaving imprints, planting seeds on our mind to be able to meet these teachings again in the next life and future lives and continue to cultivate our understanding of emptiness. And if we keep working on that, plus complementary practices, not only learning about emptiness, but to be able to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, we also need ethical conduct. That's a very, very important ground, foundation for developing the wisdom realizing emptiness, plus concentration, just work on taming our mind so it's not completely wild and out of control, taming our disturbing emotions and learning to focus our mind. So these are complementary things, plus purification, accumulation of merits. So there's lots of things we can do, and geared towards or directed towards this understanding of emptiness. So if we just say, "Oh, it's impossible, it's too hard, I can't do it," never even try, then that's not a very good attitude. But our teachers, I know my teachers, are always so encouraging. Just do whatever you can. Even just listening to teachings on emptiness is such a good thing to do. So beneficial, so virtuous. And it doesn't help only towards the long-term goal of direct realization of emptiness. It also helps us in this lifetime. The more we learn about it and think about it and meditate on it, it's a really helpful way of changing our mind in this lifetime as well, decreasing our disturbing emotions. So don't have a defeatist attitude about it.
So this person clarified that other traditions, especially Theravada and Zen, tend to see attainment as very possible in this lifetime. Do you see it differently?
Attainment of the direct realization of emptiness? Well, I guess it depends on the teacher, the tradition. Yeah, I know. For example, there's this book, lovely book. It's called In This Very Life, written by, or actually it wasn't written, but it was the teachings given by, I can't remember his name, Burmese teacher, Sayadaw U Pandita, maybe. And yeah, very beautiful. And this is his message, don't think talking not enlightenment, but nirvana. Don't think nirvana is way off there. You can do it in this very lifetime. But yeah, if you look at the way Burmese monks practice, yeah, if you can practice like that, then yeah. And also in monasteries, there are monks in the monasteries who are just totally dedicated to studying and practicing and meditating. And yeah, if you can put that kind of time and energy into it, then it's quite possible. A lot of it too depends on what we've brought into this life from past lives. I think some people have done a lot of work already before this lifetime, and so for them it can happen quickly. So we just don't know until we try. Yeah.
Someone else asks, is it a biological trait that sentient beings want to survive and are afraid of dying? I've seen many animals in distress, and I'm quite certain they were afraid of dying.
I think so. Yeah. Buddhism says all sentient beings want to be happy, no sentient being wants to suffer, and the worst suffering is death. That's why our first precept is to not kill, because that's the greatest suffering we could cause to another living being, is to destroy their life, kill them. So definitely Buddhism would agree with that nobody really wants to die. It's just biological or instinctive or just deep there in our mind that we want to hang on to our life and do not want to die.